Christine stood tall, her voice steady, but her words cut sharper than any lawyer's argument. In front of the judge, she turned to Robyn and declared, "You stole my future." The courtroom froze. For years, viewers had speculated about betrayal, favoritism, and hidden agendas. But in this moment, the secrets finally spilled into the open. What if the truth about sister wives was never what TLC showed us? What if behind the reality television grins, there lay a history of dishonesty, fraud, and betrayal? And what if those women who kept silent for so long were finally speaking out? And in a courtroom, no less, where deceptions have repercussions and evidence doesn't vanish during editing. As per confidential court documents received from the Flagstaff County Superior Court, Christine Brown officially accused Cody and Robyn of diverting family money, funds intended for all the wives and children. The amount, close to $900,000 in misspent assets, tracked to accounts held by Robyn alone. To viewers who saw Christine leave her marriage in 2021, this showdown may have seemed like it was a long time in the making, but within the courthouse, the drama wasn't about television or heartbreak. It was about fiscal survival, legal responsibility, and the destruction of a family dynasty founded on concealment. "The lie didn't only destroy my marriage," Christine instructed the court. "It stole my plans, my dreams, my children's security, and it was Robyn who had the keys to it all." Even the judge looked stunned at the force of her words. Court transcripts revealed the silence that ensued lasted for almost a minute before the legal proceedings continued. This isn't the narrative TLC ever wished you would see. But court records, testimony, and sworn affidavits don't lie. What you're about to hear is the real story of how Christine Brown confronted Robyn in a legal showdown that could reshape not only their futures, but the legacy of sister wives itself. To understand Christine's shocking words in court, "You stole my future," we need to go back, not to when she departed Cody, but to the years prior, when cash discreetly began to leak through hidden cracks in the family financial foundation. For years, the Browns were a plural family unit, combining resources into what they referred to as the family pot. On television, it seemed straightforward: Cody earned, the wives contributed, and the pot was divided fairly. But behind the scenes, Christine's filings claim the system was permeated by secrecy. Court filings reveal an alarming pattern. Money from TLC contracts was divided into several accounts. Christine, Janelle, and Mary had access only to limited communal funds. Robyn and Cody set up 2 private accounts. Meanwhile, in 2014, shortly following Robyn's legal marriage to Cody, one of the accounts was registered under a new formed LLC. The other, merely House Fund, was registered in Robyn alone's name. Over 7 years, over $900,000 in payments from TLC, proceeds from the sale of property, and revenue from family business were diverted into these accounts, according to an independent forensic accountant retained by Christine's attorneys. Christine testified that she had observed discrepancies in the family's financial records well before she left. She alleged receipts on household expenses didn't add up, and that she was frequently instructed to just trust Cody and Robyn with the numbers. It wasn't about money. It was about domination. While Christine was pinching pennies for groceries on behalf of her children, Robyn was allegedly buying opulent furniture, designer clothing, and even custom art for her Flagstaff compound. Things Christine claimed she had no idea were financed with family funds. "I was informed that there wasn't sufficient for Jezebel's surgery." Christine testified on the stand, recalling the 2020 incident when her daughter's procedure became a national sensation. But there always seemed to be enough for Robyn's credit cards. Legal specialists in the courtroom afterwards referred to Christine's evidence as the turning point in the case. Not because it was sensational, but because it linked the emotional destruction fans witnessed on television directly to cold hard cash in the bank. By the time Christine faced Robyn in court, the paper trail had already been stripped bare. Bank statements, transfers, signatures, proof that established for certain the so-called family pot was, in reality, a tunnel straight into Robyn's hands. And that is when Christine's accusation, "You stole my future," began to sound less like a metaphor and more like a legal fact. The courtroom was charged, the kind of silence where even the click of a pen sounds deafening. Christine had completed laying out her evidence, and the judge turned to Robyn. For the first time, the 2 women were not separated by reality television edits or orchestrated family meetings. They were only a few feet of gleaming wood and the burden of the truth apart. Christine pushed forward, her gaze locked on Robyn. "You took my future," she said again, this time with conviction. Robyn's response was instant tears, but unlike the sister-wives moments, when tears seemed to flip sympathy in her direction, this time the courtroom crowd did not react. Instead, the judge glanced down at his papers, unconvinced, Mrs. Brown. The judge said in a stern tone, "You will have to respond directly to the allegations made in these documents. Tell me about these accounts." The lawyers for Christine had already entered the bank statements into evidence. Robyn named transfers, Cody signed withdrawal authorization signatures, spendings amounting to tens of thousands, vacations, designer products, mortgage payments on Robyn's Flagstaff mansion. The attorney pushed one paper across the table. A $15,000 furniture purchase, ordered 2 weeks after Christine had pleaded with Cody to get Jezebel's surgery done. Christine's voice trembled as she spoke to Robyn once more. "Do you have any idea what it is like to look your daughter in the face and say, 'We can't pay for your surgery,' while you are purchasing high-priced chairs for a home I was never even invited into?" Robyn wiped at her tears, claiming the purchases were family-approved expenses. But Christine fired back. "Don't say family, Robyn. Don't say we agreed, because I didn't. Janelle didn't. Mary didn't. You and Cody decided. You and Cody stole." Exclusive court transcripts reported that the judge cut Robyn off when she attempted to begin a lengthy explanation. "Mrs. Brown, please keep your answers to the financial evidence," Robyn stuttered, her voice shaking. "I was told the funds were ready, Cody promised me." But Christine interrupted her. "Exactly, he promised you, while the rest of us scrambled to find ways to make ends meet. That is what I mean when I say you took my future, because you were constructing yours at the cost of mine." For fans who had long suspected unfairness, the courtroom confrontation was more than theatrics. It was vindication, the unvarnished emotion, the tears, the straight talk that never found its way into TLC's produced shows. All of it went down in front of the law, where only facts counted. And as Robyn's voice broke while being interrogated, Christine's determination only intensified. She wasn't just accusing Robyn of being a co-wife. She was accusing her of being the woman who, with Cody, had supposedly drained almost $1 million from everyone else. The gavel came down across the bench, and the judge demanded order. The confrontation was far from over. It was only getting worse. Every courtroom thriller has that one turning point when speculation cools into cold, hard fact. For Christine, it was when her attorneys brought in what they referred to as Exhibit 42. It wasn't a typical bank statement. It was a chain of emails between Cody, Robyn, and a financial advisor based in Flagstaff. The subject, future planning. The emails outlined a plan to transfer money from the Shared Family LLC into a private reserve account meant, as Robyn put it, to secure my children's future in case the show ends. The advisor had cautioned about transparency. He had directly asked if Christine, Janelle, or Mary consented to this transfer. Cody's answer. 2 chilling words. "Don't worry." When the judge read those emails in court, gasps filled the room. Christine's attorney seized the moment. "Your Honor, this is the evidence. Not only were funds siphoned, but they were so done with intent to keep Christine and the other wives in the dark. This is not a clerical mistake. It is a premeditated fraud. The dollar figures associated with those emails were mind-boggling. One payment alone totaled $250,000 and was made just days after Christine complained about medical expenses. Another, worth $180,000, was listed as a down payment on property improvements, but was deposited straight into Robyn's own bank account. Christine's fingers shook as she gazed at the pages displayed on the courtroom screen. These weren't figures. They were years of fighting, sleepless nights, and deferred dreams. "This is it," she said softly to Janelle, who had slipped into the rear of the courtroom to be with her. "This is the evidence we always believed was there." Robyn, however, appeared wan. She asserted she had never read the advisor's entire emails, professing to trust Cody to get it all done. But the judge wasn't buying it. "Mrs. Brown," he shot back sternly, "your name is quite clearly copied on this string. These emails were addressed directly to you. Whether or not you read them, you were a party to this scheme." It was the watershed moment. What had been presented by Christine as betrayal, the law was starting to see as fraud with monetary repercussions. And while Exhibit 42 continued to glow on the courtroom monitor, Christine's previous words rang out louder than ever. "You stole my future." But if the emails were the smoking gun, the second revelation would be the detonation. Proof that would propel the case from civil fraud to possible criminal liability. The courtroom became heavier after Exhibit 42 was disclosed. Even the atmosphere seemed altered, as if the power base had been tipped. Christine's words had established the foundation, but the emails had pinned Robyn and Cody in a corner. The judge took off his glasses, leaned forward, and spoke directly to Robyn. His voice was firm, precise, and not the leniency ones expect from Sister Wives fans when Cody was challenged. "Mrs. Brown, this court does not take lightly the willful hiding of assets. The paperwork that has been laid out indicates not only negligence, but concerted deception." He paused for his words to take effect before going on. "If subsequent evidence bears out that these funds were used with intent to defraud, we could be facing criminal liability, not merely civil damages." The phrase criminal liability resonated throughout the room like a gavel bang. Christine gasped. Janelle's eyes opened wide. And for the first time, Robyn appeared unable to call upon her to defense of tears and sympathy. Her attorney flailed, objecting to the term, insisting that this was a domestic squabble, not a crime. But the judge was unmoved. "This court is not in business to resolve domestic disputes. We are here to decide whether there has been a lawful use of funds and whether there has been fraud. I will remind counsel that perjury and concealment have severe penalties." Christine's attorneys seized the moment. They cited dates of transactions revealing money going into Robyn's personal account simultaneously with Christine's pleas for assistance with medical expenses being rejected. They underscored purchases labeled as necessities that included designer handbags and even a personal vacation to Sedona. Robyn had had enough. Her voice trembled as she attempted to justify herself. "I didn't know it was wrong, I thought Cody had done something about it. He said it was for us, for the kids." But Christine's counterattack was quick and cutting. "For your children, Robyn, not mine, not Janelle's, not Mary's. While my daughter was pleading for surgery, you were making a future I was told didn't exist. That is not ignorance, that is complicity." The judge raised his gavel again, quelling the chatter that swept the courtroom. "Let me make this clear," he stated, his voice unyielding. "If we find family money was channeled without complete knowledge and consent of all parties, this will not only mean restitution. It may result in charges." The shock was real. Fans had long complained about Robyn favoritism, but criminal fraud charges had never been on the Sister Wives' radar, until now. And still, the judge's threat was only the first, because what was to follow wasn't so much about lost money or designer buys. Christine's lawyers were on the verge of unveiling the personal accounts, sworn affidavits from insiders who said they had seen the operation from up close. This was no longer Christine and Robyn anymore. This was Christine versus the whole pretension of the Brown dynasty. If the emails and bank records were the skeleton of Christine's case, the depositions were the flesh that breathed life into it. The courtroom changed again as the judge permitted Christine's attorneys to have witnesses, individuals who lived close enough to the Browns to witness firsthand what actually went on behind the closed doors. The first was an old family accountant, a quiet man who had once handled tax returns for the Brown family. Sworn in, he testified something remarkable. "When I first looked through their records, I saw discrepancies. TLC checks weren't all being put into the joint account. I asked Cody about it, and he said, 'Don't mention it again.' He said, 'Those funds are protected, and Robyn's handling them.' He said under oath that he finally quit because he couldn't in good conscience sign off on numbers he felt were incomplete at best and intentionally misleading at worst. Then came a former nanny, someone that fans already knew was out there, courtesy of previous leaks about Robyn's childcare. Her story was not about numbers, but about conduct. I was instructed not to show Christine or Janelle certain packages or mail deliveries," she confessed. There were urgent financial documents envelopes that Robyn had stashed away in her office. Sometimes Cody would take them late at night. The nanny hesitated, her voice breaking. "I didn't know all of it, but I knew they were hiding things from the other wives." Christine sat in silence throughout the testimony, jaw clenched, eyes glued to the floor. To suspect betrayal was one thing, another to have people swear to it. But most incendiary came from a source least expected, a former production assistant for TLC sworn in. He testified that producers were routinely told to steer clear of filming some of the conversation about money. "We were instructed to stay on family drama. Not money," he explained, "but off camera. We heard all about it." Cody referred to Robyn as his financial partner, and even boasted that she was the only one who could secure his future. The courtroom buzzed as Christine's attorneys linked these testimonies back to Exhibit 42, the incriminating emails. Piece by piece, they were constructing a case of systematic exclusion and manipulation, one that Christine's words, "You stole my future," captured in heartbreaking simplicity. Robyn's defense attempted to counter by saying witnesses were biased, disgruntled, or misinformed, but the judge wasn't convinced. This court places value on sworn statements, especially when they are corroborated by documentary evidence. He stated, "And at this juncture, I am observing an unsettling trend." The gravity of those words fell hard. Christine had moved from having been brushed off as the jealous wife in the show's storyline to a persuasive voice supported by witnesses and evidence. But the case wasn't over, because next, the court would have to address the ultimate question: how much money actually was lost, and who'd repay it? The courtroom had by now turned away from drama and toward cold, hard numbers. Weeks of testimony later, it was finally time to calculate the damage. Christine's lawyers put forward their forensic accounting report, an excruciating breakdown of deposits, withdrawals, and mysterious transfers dating back almost a decade. The amount stunned even those who believed they'd heard everything: $2.7 million in unexplained money. This was no mistake. Christine's lead attorney informed the court. It wasn't a misstatement of accounts. It was deliberate channeling of communal income into private accounts, managed solely by Robyn and to a lesser degree Cody. "My client's financial security was not just overlooked, it was systematically stolen." The split revealed that while Christine, Janelle, and Mary were struggling to pay mortgages, bills, and medical costs, the Robyn family was quietly racking up assets. A virtually debt-free house, luxury cars, and investments in parcels of land that had not been revealed on the series. The most incriminating detail: an account created in 2014 with an initial deposit of $80,000, consistently supplemented by TLC paychecks year after year, had reached over $600,000. Christine said under oath she had never even heard of that account until the court revealed it. Robyn's team attempted to redefine the money as family reinvestment, simply bearing her name. But the judge wasn't buying. These funds were clearly meant for the community household, he decreed. Evidence does show an intentional diversion, be it by fraud or by concealment. The end result is the same. Other parties were economically deprived. Christine stopped breathing as the judge started reciting restitution figures. At a minimum, he told her, she was owed $750,000 for her portion of misappropriated funds. Janelle and Mary, although absent in this case, were mentioned as potential claimants with rights to bring their own suits. But Christine's attorney pushed on, claiming emotional damages and loss of future earnings. The judge did not throw it out. Instead, he called for a complete financial accounting of the Browns' business holdings, from Coyote Pass holdings to royalties from production companies. For the first time in years, Cody and Robyn's finances were not merely a family secret. They were a public record, and the cracks were widening rapidly. Christine, who had previously walked away from Cody with nothing more than her honor, was now on the brink of a legal win that would cost them and Robyn everything they believed had been secured. But there was one more blow waiting to fall, and it would land on Cody harder than anyone could have anticipated. The tension snapped at last when Cody's turn arrived to testify. Until now, Robyn had borne the bulk of the defense, sitting rigidly beside her lawyers. But now Cody would have to account for himself. Not as a star of a reality show, not as the patriarch of a polygamous family, but as an under-oath man. At first, he went into one of his typical speeches on family unity and misunderstandings exaggerated out of proportion. He attempted to spin the stolen money as strategic tactics for the benefit of all. But the judge interrupted him. "Mr. Brown, this is not a television confessional. This is under oath testimony. Answer the questions directly." That is when the facade broke. Cody's voice became louder, hostile. He was insisting Christine was jealous and vindictive. He argued she had no right to demand money because she had walked away. Christine's lawyer put a calm hand on the table and slid Exhibit 58 across to Cody, an email he'd written to a financial advisor 2 years before. In it, he'd stated clearly that all subsequent TLC checks should be channeled through Robyn's LLC, without mention of the other wives. The courtroom went silent. Cody stuttered, his face red. He attempted to explain the email was taken out of context, but the judge wasn't having it. The context is clear, the judge snapped. You intentionally left other members of your household short of money that lawfully belonged to them. This court finds that bad faith. Witnesses had called Cody visibly shaken, his bravado stripped from him. For the first time, it was clear, this was not a man master of his own story. This was a man backed into a corner by his own paper trail. And then came the judge's most biting words to date. What I am witnessing here is not a question of family conflicts. What I am witnessing is fraud, favoritism, and a total lack of regard for fiduciary responsibility. Mr. Brown, your actions destroy not just your credibility, but the very essence of the mutual financial trust you purport to hold in such high esteem. Robyn gripped his hand, but Cody averted his face. His jaw clenched. It was a heartbreaking moment. The father of sister wives brought low to a defendant denied his armor. Christine, meanwhile, didn't smile. She didn't smirk. She simply seemed relieved. For years, her suspicion and warning had been derided as bitterness. But here, in court, the truth was inescapable, and still it wasn't over. Because once it was exposed that the financial fraud had occurred, the court began to examine something even more hurtful. The fate of Coyote Pass, Cody's crown jewel, so-called empire. For years, Coyote Pass had been Cody's vision. The property he vowed would bring all his wives and children together under one roof. But on the stand, the truth of that land sale was anything but the proposal presented by Cody on TLC. Christine's lawyers uncovered a shocking fact. Several pieces of Coyote Pass were bought with combined family funds, but the deeds named only Cody and Robyn as equal owners. Christine, Janelle, and Mary were assured of shares that didn't exist. This was to be our future, Christine testified. Cody told us it was for all of us, but in law it was reserved, just like the money. The judge had no hesitation tearing the situation apart. So let me be crystal clear, he said, scanning the deeds. You applied for marital and family property to buy property, but then deeded it in a manner that left out some spouses, and you never told them that in writing. Cody grumbled something about streamlining paperwork, but the judge wasn't having any of it. This is not streamlining, Mr. Brown. This is misrepresentation. And then came the shocker. The court instructed an instant valuation and division of Coyote Pass. Christine was granted a monetary claim to her just share, valued at $450,000, with Janelle and Mary also being granted standing to present their own petitions. More stunning still, the judge put any subsequent sale or development of the property on ice until a complete audit could be done. That meant Cody and Robyn couldn't sell or use the property as a way to get out of their piling bills. With one decisive stroke, Coyote Pass came crashing down. The vision that had been Cody's dream of a cohesive family was now part of a case for fraud, broken apart piece by piece. The courtroom gasped as the judge rendered his closing sentence. This case is not so much about money. It is about trust violated, futures taken, and duties disregarded. The court decides in favor of Christine Brown and provides restitution, property reallocation, and a permanent injunction against further hiding marital funds. Christine did not cry. She did not applaud. She just breathed, her shoulders finally uncoiling after decades of bearing suspicion, anger, and sorrow. She had battled, and she had emerged victorious. Cody hunched in his chair, head down. Robyn sat staring ahead, whiter than the snow outside and inscrutable. For the first time, the power had changed, and not to their benefit. But one chapter remained, how Christine took this court victory and turned it into the first authentic move toward creating the future she claimed Robyn had stolen. When the gavel fell, Christine didn't experience it as a takedown. She experienced it as closure. For years, she'd been instructed to settle for less, to get by, to make do in silence. Now the court had confirmed what she had always known in her heart. She was deprived of her future, not her power. Outside the courthouse, there were reporters thronging. Christine did not provide them with the tabloid melodrama they had hoped for. Instead, she spoke directly. This wasn't about money, this was about the truth. And today, the truth finally mattered. Her lawyers attested that property claims and restitution would be settled in weeks. Christine would at last see her portion of the family fortune, but more so, she had compelled openness where there was once secrecy. For Robyn and Cody, the verdict was disastrous. The ruling had them saddled with more than $1 million in liabilities, assets frozen, and a reputation in shambles. What had been their well-protected future was now at the mercy of accountants, lawyers, and of course, the public eye. Online fans responded immediately. Support overflowed on forums where Christine was hailed as the true matriarch for defending not only herself, but also every wife who had been silenced or sidelined. Hashtags number Justice for Christine and number Coyote Pass exposed trended within hours. But Christine wasn't concerned about hashtags. She was concerned about freedom. With her restitution, she talked about creating a house where her grandchildren and children could always feel safe, something that never would have been possible living under Cody's shadow. For the first time, "My future is mine," she whispered softly, smiling. Inside, she knew the scars of betrayal wouldn't vanish overnight. The years of manipulation, secrecy, and favoritism had left wounds too deep for quick healing. But in the eyes of the law, and in the eyes of the women who once shared her burden, Christine had set a precedent. She had taken on Cody and Robyn, exposed the fraud, and walked away not as a victim, but as a victor. The doors of the courtroom shut on one part of her life and opened another. Christine was no longer a wife tied to a decaying empire. She was a woman who stood tall, her voice ringing out stronger than any judge's decree. "You stole my future, but I took it back." And with that, the sister wives saga changed forever. From Cody's authority to Christine's victory. The courthouse war was won, but the shock waves had just started. Within 24 hours of the court decision, headlines went off on news websites and social media. Judge rules against Cody and Robyn in fraud case. Christine wins big court orders restitution in sister wives showdown. Coyote Pass dream shattered by explosive verdict. For Robyn and Cody, the aftermath was merciless. Flagstaff local reporters camped outside their mansion, snapping photos of moving vans leaving just a few days later. Close sources to the couple said they were already speaking with bankruptcy lawyers, trying to determine how to pay the judgment without losing their property. In the meantime, Christine's win had relit old fires. Janelle called Christine the night of her win, according to reports, saying, "You didn't just win for you, you won for all of us." Even Mary, who had become estranged in recent years, was said to have texted Christine a one-line message, "Proud of you." But likely the most emotional aftermath was from the children. Adult children such as Aspen, Mickelty, and Peden publicly supported their mother on social media, thanking her for her bravery. "My mom battled years of lies and she won," Pardon wrote in one message. "We always knew she was worth better." Now the world knows too. For TLC, the circumstances were much more complex. Production sources spilled that executives were convening emergency sessions, discussing whether the ongoing court battles would halt upcoming filming or make the show the most profitable ever. There were those who claimed the court drama was too damaging to the network's image. There were those who thought the scandal would bring record, setting ratings if cameras kept rolling. Throughout it all, Christine kept her cool. She didn't gloat, she didn't go ballistic on social media. She calmly issued a statement from her lawyer expressing gratitude to the court for restoring fairness and requesting privacy as she figured out what is next. But privacy was the last thing that she was going to receive. The fans were starving for more, and so was the press. Christine's tale had expanded beyond sister wives. It had become a symbol of strength, justice, and a woman taking back what was rightfully hers. Nevertheless, behind the win was one question: would Cody and Robyn challenge back with an appeal, or had the gavel finally shut the book on their dynasty? The decision had only just settled when rumors of an appeal started to circulate. Robyn, clearly distraught following the verdict, was reported to have informed pals that Christine's win was temporary and they would set the record straight in higher court. Behind closed doors, Cody was not reacting as calmly. Sources close to the family said he was pacing the mansion, venting about how the judge didn't get polygamy, and that Christine had weaponized the system against him. But if Cody and Robyn were going to appeal, they had two huge obstacles: money and credibility. Legally, their lawyers would need to demonstrate that the initial trial was in error, either procedurally, evidentially, or judicially. But Christine's case had been supported by overwhelming documentation, bank statements, emails, witness statements. Reversing such an open paper trail would be a long shot. Financially, things looked bleaker. Court records indicated that appealing the ruling might take tens of thousands of dollars in attorneys' fees, money they did not have lying around. With assets seized and debts pending, even initiating the appeal process might drive them under. Nevertheless, Cody persisted. He allegedly said to Robyn, "If we let this stand, we're finished. We have to fight." Robyn, generally the more reserved tactician, struck a more cautious line. She was reported to be consulting with financial advisors, inquiring whether bankruptcy shelter might protect them from Christine's jurisdiction and give them time for an appeal. Christine's side, meanwhile, was not shaken. Her attorney released a short statement: "We are confident the ruling will withstand any challenge." The evidence speaks for itself. Fans online speculated endlessly. Would Cody really gamble what little remained on a desperate appeal? Or was this just another attempt to project strength in a situation he had already lost? For Christine, the thought of another round in court wasn't welcome, but she made it clear she wasn't afraid. "If they appeal, she told a close friend. "I've lived through worse than paperwork and lawyers. I'm not backing down." The question was not whether Cody and Robyn would appeal. The actual question was, would they last it financially or emotionally if they tried? Months later, the dust had settled. Cody and Robyn's threats of an appeal dwindled when reality set in. They couldn't pay for the legal battle they threatened. Their lawyers instead quietly submitted settlement papers, admitting the judgment and consenting to payment terms. It wasn't a grand battle. It was a quiet defeat. For Christine, the victory was more than a legal victory. It was a transformative moment. With restitution won, she invested in constructing a new home, her own place, free from the shadow of Coyote Pass. She spent her days with her children and grandchildren, not dwelling on what was lost but on what she had finally regained. "This isn't about revenge," she said to an interviewer several months later. "It is about peace. I didn't just win money. I won my freedom. I won the right to decide my own future." Her tale resonated far beyond the Sister Wives audience. Christine's struggle became a rallying cry for resisting manipulation, for being brave after decades of silence. On the internet, she was hailed as the woman who broke the cycle, and others who were trapped in bad relationships or financial dependence followed her lead. And as for Cody and Robyn, the verdict isolated them. Coyote Pass remained a tract of unfulfilled promise, a reminder of failed promises. Their bank accounts dwindled, their reputations tarnished, and while cameras continued to pursue them, their story had forever been remade. Christine no longer bore the burden of their decisions. She entered her new existence with her head held high, her words from that courtroom ringing with even greater urgency. "You stole my future, but I took it back." The empire that Cody attempted to dominate had fallen. In return, Christine's legacy stood, the knot, as the wife who left one, but the woman who won. And for once, the last chapter wasn't penned by Cody, Robyn, or even TLC. It was written by Christine herself.